What's up, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Everyday Discipline, where we decode, deconstruct, and reverse engineer self-discipline for you to get whatever it is you want in your life. My name is Brent Kokel. I am your host. As always, I do genuinely love it when you're here on the show with me because, as always, of what it says about you. So many people say they want to change their lives, they want to change their businesses, but very few of them actually do anything about it. You are here on this show because you want to do something about it, and if you've been here for a while, you know the fee of the show, which is to do something based on what I talk about in this show. Do something for yourself, something that improves your life in some way. Exactly how you go about doing that, that's up to you. I'm not too worried about that. But I do want you to do something, a specific something that I give you at the end of every single episode. So I don't know if you ever had one of those massive moments of realization when you figure out that your children are exactly like you. That happened to me last week when I noticed my son was ultra competitive, right? No idea where he could have possibly got that from because he comes up to me and he wants to have an arm wrestling contest and he's 8. So you can imagine how this would go. But he always takes on these super big challenges, these challenges that are super hard for him. And then he is super hard on himself when he doesn't execute perfectly right away. No idea where he could have possibly gotten that either. But what was interesting last week was I noticed that he has the exact same solution every time this happens to him, where he wants to be competitive, he sets a massive goal, it doesn't work out for him right away. He's really got one go-to move, which I get because he's 8, but that move is just simply to try harder. Like, that's it. He'll try harder. And it doesn't exactly work out for him all the time because what happens most of the time is first he gets fatigued because he was trying a lot harder. Then he gets frustrated because trying harder didn't do what he wanted it to do. Then he gets pissed off, which means he's just like, okay, now I'm out. You guys really pissed me off this time. So here we go. And I noticed the craziest thing, speaking of just like me. I used to do the exact same thing in business until about 6 years ago, right? So I'd have this idea and this goal that I set, and this goal would be massive because I read all the same books you did that talk about how big your goals really should be beyond your comfort zone. And then I would set about this path to executing it, and I would work 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, really doing everything that I thought I could possibly do to win. Of course, as most things go, it didn't go exactly like I was anticipating that it would go. It turned out to be a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And because of that, well, what did I do? I got sucked up into the hustle and grind culture that we've got going on everywhere in this country. I'm not sure if it's going on everywhere around the world, but I know that there's like a prize for who works the most in this country. For some unknown, really stupid reason, we have that prize. And so I started working 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, all trying to come up with this goal, trying to win at this goal. And yeah, then what happened? Inevitably, I got frustrated. I got fatigued. And I got pissed off, just like my son did. And yeah, of course, I was an absolute peach to live with at the time. And yes, my wife is, in fact, a saint. So something had to change. There had to be some big action, some radical solution to this problem that I kept on going with over and over and over again. And so I ended up, for the first time in my life, hiring a consultant. And I hired this consultant. I paid him $50,000, which scared the shit out of me for a couple reasons. One is I had no idea what kind of results I was going to get out of it. But two, I also had $65,000 in my business bank account at the time. So this guy was eating up a majority of it. But I was like, you know what? I need something different. I need a shift in my perspective. And it turned out to be a really, really good decision because even just from the first meeting, I ended up working with this guy for about 6 months. Even from the first meeting, I recognized that I made about $150,000 in that first meeting. Top line revenue, not profit. But still. And the crazy part is that all he did was he pointed out a couple of things that I couldn't see. Things that I should have seen, but I just couldn't see. It's like the problems were too close to my face. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but it's like the problems are just too close to my face to be able to see them. He asked me a series of questions, and that helped me see. And what I recognized in that is that I didn't lack the skill. I lacked the sight. Big difference in the two of those things, right? When it's not going the way that I thought it was supposed to go, I thought that there was a skill set that I needed to level up. There was something that I needed to be able to do better than I was doing right then. And it turned out to be the exact opposite. It was that I didn't see well enough. I couldn't see the problems. And I expected that I had really complex problems. These things that I was just like, man, these problems are so complex, it require a complex solution. But they were really simple solutions to seemingly complex problems once I had the ability to see. Now, exactly those things that he talked to me about and the things that I were able to see really aren't relevant to this show because you probably approach your business differently. You're a different entrepreneur than I am, but I'll be willing to bet $50,000, which happened to be the fee of that consultant, that you and I have some similarities. If you're struggling right now, if your business isn't at the stage where it's hitting the potential that you know that it could, you and I have the same thing going on, which is that you do not lack the skill. Granted, there's always skills you could level up. Maybe you could be better at sales, maybe better at marketing, maybe better at hiring and recruiting and interviewing and managing. You could be better at some skills. But my bet is you don't lack the skill or the capacity to learn the skills. You probably just lack the sight. And we all need it. That's not to say that you suck. That's not to say that you don't know what you're doing. It's the thing that happens. And I know for a fact because now I help people see. It happens to everybody. It's like when you're looking for your sunglasses and your wife says, hey, they're on your head. That's all it is. The problem's just too close to your face to be able to figure it out. And I see this happen to people and businesses all the time. And so if you're finding that in your own business or your own life, don't feel bad. Don't feel like it's you're alone and everybody else can figure it out, but you somehow can't figure it out. It seriously isn't the skill. It's the sight. And the sight really comes from just a series of questions, right? And there's a series of questions that I bring people through. But I'll give you one really critical one that's going to start to help you see today, which is the simplest question in the world that's also the most difficult one to answer, which is, what are you really trying to build here? Like, look at that in terms of business. What are you really trying to build? It sounds like a simple question on the front end, doesn't it? But it is one of the hardest questions that anybody can ask you because it requires you to think about something that you probably hadn't thought before. You know, I remember sitting down with a guy the other week and I asked him what he was trying to build. And the answer out of his mouth was generational wealth. Well, that's interesting. Because that's not really a thing. That's a byproduct of the thing that you're trying to build. If you're trying to build a business, it may produce generational financial wealth and abundance and prosperity. But that's not what you're actually trying to build. That won't come unless you're clear on what you're trying to build. What I find is that most people struggle with that question because they never started out with the end in mind. They started out with the first tactical solution. The thing that I need to do first in order to get money into my bank account. I need somebody to pay me for something. This is the quickest tactical way I can get somebody to do that. Check the box, boom, I'm done. And then they keep doing this. And they do this over and over and over again, and to the point where it's almost like they've got golden handcuffs that they just got somewhere that they weren't really sure they wanted to get, but they showed up there and they're like, okay, I'm here. And now I'm living a comfortable life. I make the money that I want to make. I drive a pretty nice car. I live in a pretty nice house. I go on pretty nice vacations. But I'm going to have you consider that one of the primary differences between that person and that business owner and the business owner that has all the stuff they really want, like the house they really want. Maybe it overlooks the ocean. Has the car they really want. Maybe it's Italian and sounds really cool. Maybe they go on better vacations, right? The ones with the clearer water in the ocean. The difference between those two is this very question. The second one knew exactly what they were trying to build from the start, and then they just built that. And the reason for this is because you would build something very differently depending on the end product. If you're trying to build a $2 million local business, you will take dramatically different steps than if you are trying to build a $100 million global business. Total difference, right? You would do things differently. You would tactically line things up differently. You would have a different strategy that you would be trying to execute. But it only matters if you understand what it is you're trying to build. So ask yourself that question, right? When I sit across from you, I can ask you that. And I promise you, that's one of the most uncomfortable conversations I have with anybody. Because they don't know the answer and they feel like they should. You should know the answer too. So spend some time on that question. What am I really trying to build here? Then once you have the answer to that, then it becomes easier to put the pieces together in order to actually pull it off. But not if you're not clear on what exactly it is you're trying to build. So in the next 24 to 48 hours, spend 20, 30 minutes on this, or as long as it takes. Some people have taken 8 hours with this one exercise of what am I really trying to build? And when I say some people, I think about their end result. And there was but the 3 of them that did it this way was 8 figures. So it may take you 8 hours if you want 8 figures. Maybe it's 1 figure per hour. I've never done the math on that. But spend the time on this. What am I trying to build here? Do that in the next 24 to 48 hours. And I promise you, the rest of this year is going to work so much better for you, at least in terms of business production. All right, guys, that's it. That's the show for the day. Hey, if you have yet to give this podcast a review and a rating on whatever platform you're watching it on or listening to it on, I would really appreciate that. That means a like if you're watching it on YouTube, if you are listening to it on Apple, Spotify, Pandora, wherever you are listening to this, then please do give me a review. It helps with the algorithm. I want more people to hear this message. This podcast isn't for me to sell anything that I do. This podcast is here because I recognize that what I do is not accessible to most people and most companies. But I want you to be able to get there. And if I help get you there, well, then that makes me feel really damn good. So please share this and please rate this because it certainly helps get the message out to more people. And that is it for today's episode, guys. I'm going to do my job as always. I want you to do your job and you come back too.